The premise of this book is that Max falls in love with his dead wife's twin sister. Let me repeat that. Max falls in love with his dead wife's twin sister. This book is all sorts of wrong.
Argo Funk Book Review. Argo Funk Book Review.
Abby learns that she is pregnant with Philippe's baby, the same day she learns he already has a wife and kids. She feels like a fool because she fell for his lies. Her twin sister Kelly arrives. The twins are best friends who can read each other's minds. Kelly thinks they should do a twin switch. She'll take over Abby's life and Abby will take over her life. Because sitcom-style hijinks are clearly what we need in this situation. An unexpected pregnancy? Sounds like a twin swap is in order. In the meantime, Kelly's going to go to France to meet their stepmother, Giselle. This is more or less an excuse to kick Kelly out of the book, as Kelly and Giselle go into hiding where no one can contact them. Kelly lives in Montana with her husband, Max. He's a gruff rancher/police officer. Kelly has avoided him for the past 10 months, so he's angry all the time and wondering, what went wrong with our marriage? When Abby gets sick, Max rushes home to check on her. She confesses the truth about the twin swap immediately, only Max assumes she's delirious and talking nonsense. There is a truly terrible moment here. It lies somewhere between sexual harassment and rape. Max forcibly grabs Abby and checks to see if her body is preparing for nursing. When he sees she's pregnant, he starts making out with her and doesn't stop until she pushes him away with all her might and shouts loudly enough to attract the attention of someone else. It is a very uncomfortable scene, probably one of the worst ways the book could have introduced them as a romantic couple. Kelly dies from a brain tumor a few days later. Abby can feel Kelly's death when it happens, thanks to their psychic twin powers. Max and Abby mourn together at Kelly's coffin. Max sees Abby cry and he wants to kiss her until she calms down, but he can't because she's the wrong twin. Yes, that is the scene the book is named after. It's when Max wants to make out with his sister-in-law at his wife's funeral. That is all sorts of wrong, and he only met her for the first time a few days ago. It's just terrible. Abby has high blood pressure and other pregnancy complications. Max worries she also has a tumor. She doesn't, but she remains sick and depressed in the hospital until a doctor explains to her she can't stop pushing Max away because that's punishing him for no reason. And Doc, maybe you should stop meddling in your patients' love lives. Abby starts eating again and comes back to the ranch. She and Max have a legitimately nice conversation about Kelly. I'm glad to see he has a third personality trait besides mean and creepy. The book suddenly jumps ahead 4 months. Max and Abby are now madly in love with each other, but they're too scared to admit it. We never find out how this happened. I think it's a pretty huge leap to go from, we had one nice conversation, to, I want to marry you. But the book totally skips over all that stuff. We're told they love each other now, and the readers are just supposed to accept it without question. Philippe finally starts to wonder what happened to Abby. He asks around at her apartment. Max goes into policeman mode and confronts Philippe. Philippe says he loves Abby so much he wants to leave his wife and marry her. I have a hard time believing this because he hasn't contacted Abby at all in the past 4 months, but okay. It's just an excuse for forced romance drama. Abby breaks up with Philippe, but Max assumes the two of them are getting back together, so he's devastated and he runs away for a few months. Around this time we get the cover scene where he wraps his arms around her and feels the baby kick. It was kinda sweet, but 2 sweet scenes is not enough to convince me this is a super romance, especially considering how their romance started. The doctor wants Abby to move closer to the hospital. She writes Max a long letter about this, and there's more forced romance drama. He thinks the letter means she hates him forever, while she thinks the letter is a love confession. They both get mad when the other person doesn't react the way they expected. Max is injured on duty. Abby panics because she loves Max. She can't bear to lose him. She rushes to the hospital to see him, only she goes into labor and the car crashes on the side of the road. Max finds her, and he heroically saves the baby's life by clearing the liquid out of its lungs, so the baby can breathe. They confess they love each other and want to raise the baby together. They kiss for the first time. Well, technically it's the second time, but it's the first time that they've kissed on purpose. We finish with secret letters from Kelly. Kelly explains the entire book was a plot she concocted after learning she had a fatal tumor. Ever since then, Kelly deliberately manipulated her sister and husband so the two of them would fall in love and get married after her death. It's supposed to be romantic that Kelly wanted happiness for the two people she cared about the most, but no, it's not. No, it's like I said, it's just all sorts of wrong. This book is all sorts of wrong. The end. Post-book follow-up. This was not a good book. The premise is flat out terrible and wrong, and the romance starts with undertones of rape. It's not romantic, it's just wrong. It's wrong, and I don't want to read it. I'd honestly rather see Abby marry the father of her child, who's willing to give up his entire life to be with her. He legitimately means that. He says it before he learns she's pregnant. But even though Philippe has a relatively large amount of scenes in this book, I don't think he's supposed to be taken seriously. He's mostly there to move the plot along. The pacing in this book is incredibly slow, to the point that I kept skipping ahead just to see if anything was going to happen soon. Even if it wasn't advertised as an extra long book, you can partially tell the author was trying to hit a minimum word count. The pacing problem is only increased by the book skipping ahead several months, twice. It made no sense for the love story to completely skip the part where the main characters fall in love. It's almost like the author wasn't sure how to get them to fall in love, so the author didn't even bother to try. Let's just skip that part. So overall, it is a book with a terrible premise and bad pacing that mostly leaves out the romance except for those two nice scenes. I would not recommend this book to anyone. I give Harlequin Superromance number 636, The Wrong Twin, a 0 out of 10. It's not just the wrong twin, it's the wrong book. And oh my gosh, Superromance number 636. There are 635 other books in this series, and that was 20 years ago, so there's probably another 600 more by now. Wow.